name is Luna, and you're listening to Infinite Souls, a podcast for that real talk about consciousness, spirituality, and realizing our infinite potential. Mucho, mucho love and light. Hello, Infinite Souls. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Luna, and today I have a special guest on, Sifu Boggie. Hello, Sifu Boggie. How you doing?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm in a great mood today because I'm feeling much better. I know I told you I was pretty sick. I was really congested with my sinuses, but I woke up feeling like a new woman today.
Good, good. And it's, well, at the time of recording, it is Women's Day, so happy Women's Day.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So, Sifu, can you introduce yourself to the people, please? Let them know a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, what you stand for.
So my real name is actually Paul Brighton, but for the last 40 years, my given name, so the arts I do, you get given a name, and my second name is Boggie. So my first name is actually Taiso, so it's Taiso Boggie. So Taiso actually means its full meaning is supreme lower chaos or big trouble, because my teachers, my Sifus, definitely thought I was big trouble. And Sifu means guide or music. It means like teacher, but more than a lot of people think, like hear Sifu and it's master. But in the Daoist arts, the Sifu is more of a guide, points you to the way. It doesn't tell you you have to do it like this, sort of gives you hints, and that's why it's like guide or muse. Sifu. It's a little bit like a good parent, a good loving parent that will help you on your path rather than hindering you. And so Taiso was so Taiso means big trouble. And it was always that I always seemed to ask questions that stirred up trouble or did things that always found myself in the wrong place, or I always seemed to get the biggest and the strongest and the scariest person bully me, and then I would and then eventually I learned how to defend myself, and then I take the biggest one out, and then everybody else would get very afraid, because when I was younger I got bullied a lot. And so that's when the Taiso bit comes in, and then the Boggie is how it should be said, because it's Korean, but most people say Boggie. And Boggie means the balancer between the chaos and the calmness, and the word actually means the storm and the calm, or the hurricane and the eye of the hurricane. So you have the calm and the chaos both happening at once. And so the idea, so I was always the big trouble. I was always, never meant to be the troublemaker, but I always seemed to land in it. And my Sifus gave me the Boggie, because that from all that chaos, I would fix it. I would learn to balance it. I would learn how to sort things out, because not until much later, not for actually like 20 years, I actually later discovered I was actually dyslexic, dyspraxic, and a slight touch of autism, which is why, like the dyslexia and dyspraxia, I see things different ways. I see things outside the box. And the autism is I can see things in a certain, I'm very stubborn and see things in a certain way, and it's that way. It's I see things very clearly and logically, which upsets people sometimes, because they have painted this nice pretty picture and I'm going, no, it's not that, it's this. and so the whole idea was my given name was that I would help seek from the chaos, I'd help seek calmness. And I actually became a close protection officer, as well as a Qigong practitioner and a healer. So even in the healing, when somebody was ill, my job was to help them heal themselves, because that's the clue, or that's the key, is that healers don't really heal people. Healers just point you in the direction of healing yourself.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for explaining what your name meant, because I was curious about that. Sifu, how do you say boggy? Boggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bo. So bo me the bo is the chaos. It's the, well, bo can also mean the big storm, and then the gi is actually in Korean and in Japanese. Gi is the belt. Is it the actual, like martial art belt, and it's wrapping up the storm, or it's calming the storm. So it's a little bit like it's a little bit like I don't know if you know, there's this great guy I follow called Caesar Milan, who's the dog trainer, and he, these big crazy dogs will their owners can't control the dogs, and in 2 seconds he goes boom, and that dog's hello, yes, and totally changed. And it's that sort of that philosophy, is that chaos will actually be wrapped up, or balanced back into that calmness. So it's a very particular name, but it's sort of like a magic name as well, because my whole life has been boggy. My whole life has been chaos and calmness. Like, things, very chaotic things will happen, and then something really cool happens from that chaos. But it always seems to happen that way. So it is. It was a name, but it's almost like my life at the same time. The boggy is your existence. You will live the path, almost like calling somebody a magician. You will live this path of the magician. So everything will be magic. Everything will be mystical. Even brushing your teeth won't be normal. So,
Yeah, it's really fitting. It's who you are. It's super fitting for you, right? So
a lot of things. So in the martial arts, so the true definition of, well, in the East, martial arts is actually called the 3 M's. So it's medical, healing self, healing others; martial, protecting self, protecting others; and meditational, so enlightening self, enlightening others. But there's always a self. There's always 2. There's always a self and others, but you always fill your own cup first. You always help, heal, know yourself first before you can do it for anybody else.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. You can't pour from an empty cup, I always say. So I do have one question, as an icebreaker, we don't really need icebreakers, but it's a question that I like to ask everyone who comes on the show. And it is, what are you grateful for today?
I suppose I am grateful for the energy of Boggie. I'm grateful for that chaos and calmness. It's always been an interesting life. I've been a baker, I've been a chef, I've been a bodyguard, close protection officer. I've taught martial arts. I've healed many different people, from migraines to fibromyalgia to MS to Crohn's. I've gone to many different countries all over the world, helped see many different people. I've worked in the Fortune 500 businesses, teaching them qigong and exercises. I've worked with military. It's been an interesting life, being in that energy of Bog, being the Sifu, being Sifu Boggie, being a practitioner of the Tao. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for life. Just to be alive.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, grateful for all of that. Definitely grateful for life. life, life and death is the, you know, the same, two sides of the same coin, but it's really been something present in my life recently. So
Mm.
grateful for life. Yeah, I feel that every day. Ah,
Yeah, I think it, it's that. Like, so Boggie is my purpose. It's being who I am, and being who you are and what you're passionate about is your purpose. So so once you find that passion, once you find what lifts your heart, what makes you smile, do it as much as possible and be grateful for those opportunities. It's not always easy, but it's definitely interesting.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an adventure. So you are a Taoist. For anybody who's listening who doesn't know what that is, what is Taoism? You know, let's begin with Taoism.
It's a Chinese word. It gets a little bit confusing in the West because the Chinese way of spelling it, so the Pinyin way of spelling it, they spell it with a D. In the West, the Wade Giles dictionary, they spell it with a T. So when you so the Tao and Dao is the same word. So some people say Taoism and Taoist, but it's actually Daoism, but it's almost like a gong. The word a bit like Boggie. It's actually Dao, and there's a tiny little T in there, so as well. So it's Taoism.
Tao.
So but see, with Chinese words, so Chinese, they sing their words. They're actually tonal, So if the word goes up, you change the word. If the tone goes up, you change the word. Your tone goes down, you change the word. So there's different ways. So the reason why different Chinese literatures, like there's 30 or 40, the Tao Te Ching, there's over 30 different translations because every single word has at least 3 meanings. So it gets a little bit interesting. Not complicated, it gets interesting. So the word Dao, Daoism, so Dao, it means the way, the path, the balance, the mist, and elusiveness. So it actually has more than one meaning. So, a bit like pointing to the way. So I normally say it means the way of your balanced path. So whatever your path, whatever your mission, in life, what drives you, what is your passion, and then following that in life. Now the balance in the West, we see balance as a flat line. A lot of people think of balance, they think of scales, and the scales have to be flat and still. But the issue is, what also is like a flat line is a heartbeat. And so you don't want to be stagnant, you don't want to be flat. So an actual balance in the East, that gets complicated as well, but the Tai Chi symbol, a lot of people say yin yang, so that white and black circle, the 2 little dots in it, its actual name is Tai Chi. Now Tai Chi means ultimate balance, because the black bit is yin, the dying foot, the feminine, the shady side of the hill, and there's a whole list of things it can be. The yang, which is the divine masculine, the sunny side of the hill, and a whole list of things. When they balance together, they become Tai Chi. So a lot of people say yin yang, but that actually means something else. It's actually Tai Chi. Now, Tai Chi, you turn that symbol to the side, and it's actually a wave. Mm-hmm. It's a ripple, and that's true balance. That balance, a balance is an up and a down. It has 2 sides to it. A yin and a yang, the light and the dark, the good and the bad. A day, inside a day, you have the dawn, you have the morning, you have the afternoon, you have the dusk, and bits in between. So, the day is a balanced, but it's more than just one thing. So finding that balance, finding that Tao, is understanding it's not a flat line. It's not exactly the same thing all the time. It varies, but also knowing and understanding that it changes a little bit like seasons, so you have a down sometimes and you have an up. But if you're in a boat you can ride those waves a lot better, you know, rather than, you know, being, if you're in the water in a dinghy or in a rubber ring, you know, you're going to be thrown about all over the place. But if you're in a big boat, then it goes across those waves a lot more smoothly. So the Tao is about finding techniques that help you ride the waves of life, ride the waves of reality. Now, in the West, they saw Daoism, but they all only saw the words. And philosophers talked about all this philosophical stuff, but Daoism is actually mental, physical, and spiritual. So there's an emotional side to Daoism. There's a physical side, which tends to be like meditation, stretching. So meditation is Shengong, so Daoist meditation. And there's lots, and sometimes it's just like sitting there going om, but meditation can be fishing. It can be writing your book. It can be recording a show. If you're focusing on one thing and forgetting everything else, that becomes a meditation. Stretching is like yoga, but in Daoist stretching, Neigong, again, there's an expansion and contraction. So Daoist yoga, Neigong, tends to be a little bit fluidly, a little bit moving. Cats and dogs, they do Neigong all the time. You see them wake up from the sleep and they stretch and then go back. And so they flow with it. And then the Qigong, which is like the umbrella term, is any exercise that creates more energy than you started with. So within Daoism, you have these, but then in Daoism, you have philosophy on food, you have philosophy on breathing, you have philosophy on how to deal with life and people. So there's lots of different Daos, there's lots of different ways, paths and balance. And especially for me, I look at the Native American Indians, I look at the Aborigines, I look at the Maori, and I see Daoists. I see people who follow the path, they follow the balance. And especially if they're a little bit nomadic, you know, they follow things, they do certain things at certain times of year to keep in their balance, in their wave. So Daoism is a far more broader thing than a lot of people think. They try to put, it's a bit like us. Our consciousness is flowing energy. It's free. It's like water, but we only see the body. We see this cup. We see this shell, and we say, "Oh, that's you." Well, no, actually, you're so much more than this body. You know, there's so much more to you, but you're only seeing one thing. And in our words, we try to describe everything, and you know, in cups. But the Tao is beyond the words. It's beyond, you know, you can sort of see a bit of it, but you can't see all of it. A bit like us, our true consciousness. We're far more than just the body we see.
Yeah, that's so cool. I am just barely getting familiar with Taoism and what it is. I've done Qigong before. When I learned quantum Reiki, the instructor he taught us to do it every day. I just haven't been doing it every day. I meditate every day though. Meditation is that's my Tao, my path. You know, and so everybody can, you're saying like there can be Taoists without them knowing that they are Taoists because they're living the path their own way, right?
If they're living their path, if they, so one of the sayings in Taoism is eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty, sleep when you're tired, move when you're energetic, cry when you're sad, laugh when you're happy, you know, go with the flow, you know, but you know, go according. And the thing in the West, we've, you know, like we're told when to eat, you know, especially if we do a 9-to-5 job, and when we should be awake and when we should do this. And then when we were kids, we were very happy and laugh, and we talked to ourselves, and we were playful, and then as we got older, oh, don't do this, don't do that, or that, you know, people will think you're silly if you do that, or this, and it's like, don't talk to imaginary friends, and then adults then go and pay to see a psychic.
Yeah.
Because children are very connected to the universe. They're Daoists. Children are natural Daoists. They flow in natural ways. What happened is that adults in society made certain things taboo and started trying to shape and mold things like we do with words. And we started to box things up, and things be, instead of allowing to be yourself, you had to be in a certain way. You had to be this. And so we stopped being Daoists. When we were toddlers, we were very Daoist. We lived according to our way, to our needs. But then as we started getting older and older, we started listening to other people, or being told by other people, listening to our peers and our friends and family. And we stopped actually being ourselves. And a lot of people's loneliness, a lot of people's emptiness is because they're not being them. Whoever them is, because there is no one way, and that's the biggest thing, even in certain with certain people, Daoism, or you get people saying my qigong's the best qigong, or this is the best. There is no best, because what works for you might not work for me. I might not enjoy it. I might not be good at it. So, but there will be a version for you. So it's this whole understanding of the Tao can't be fit in a box, just like you can't be fit in a box. You are who you are. But now, for a lot of people, it's about revealing who they are again, and removing those layers and revealing who you are. I will very quickly say one thing, is that there is no time limit on this. I had somebody at 96 years old who his wife had died. His daughter had brought him to do qigong, and he later found out that he had tried to commit suicide. He had enough. He didn't really want to be here anymore. And we started doing qigong, and we started doing very simple things, and his child came back, his inner child. He found himself again, and he actually lived for another 10 years. He lived to 106. But in that last 10 years, he'd done a whole lot more stuff that he wouldn't have done if he hadn't have just let go of the crap of what he's supposed to do as a 96-year-old, what he's supposed to do as him, and all, when he actually allowed to just be himself again and find out who he was. He had such an amazing time. He does really crazy stuff, or at least for him, and that's the whole point, is that the Tao is what, your way. It's not anybody else's way, and I very much accept. I very much always want to accept people as they are, is that you are who you are. And even, if you have a bad day, you have a bad day, it's and you get upset and stressed, breathe, deep breath, let it go, chi in, cha out. Chi, light energy, everything you do want. Cha, the stress, the worry, what you no longer need, let it out. So, and when people talk about shadow work in Daoism, they say, you want to do shadow work? Breathe in, breathe out, continue.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, the breath is so healing. It's the anchor. Since we're talking about Daoism, what got you into it? Like, how did you become a Daoist first? Like, how did that go? Like, you have to study, right? practice makes perfect.
well that's the one. I mean, very good. Yeah, very quickly. So Daoism is a day-to-day thing. It's a little bit. There's actually a technique called the water way. A lot of people have heard of water torture. you know, the drip, drip, drip annoys you and frustrates you, and it makes you go mad because of just that tiny little drip. But the water way is a tiny little bit every single day, builds up and builds your way, or flows to your way. And so the water technique is about gradual building. So, right. You know, as a kid, there were certain things about 6 years old, I sort of remember having, so I was a kid, so my 6 years old was in 1976. And in the UK in 1976, it wasn't as open, it wasn't as free thinking as it is now, especially about spirituality, about a lot of things, but especially about spirituality. So I knew I was adopted. I was actually adopted, and but I remembered as a kid. I remembered different lives. I remembered different things. And I knew I was seeing energy around me. I was seeing different beings, but I also knew, especially my mum was a hypochondriac. You know, if you sniffed, oh my God, you got bubonic plague. You know, if you cut your finger, oh, your arm's going to fall off. You know, everything got a little bit extreme with my mum. So I knew that if I was to say, I you know, by saying little things, you start realizing as a kid, or at least I did, that nobody else is seeing these things, or nobody else remembers, you know, this stuff. So I learned very quickly to keep it to myself. And I kept it to myself, and then around about like 8, 9, my mum and dad split up, and I went through the trauma of that because of what was happening. And I always was, as a kid, I was a very loving child. I always wanted to make people smile, and I just wanted to, you know, I wanted people to be happy, and I wanted, you know, to love the world. That's where, you know, I had this energy for, and I, you know, could see these things and whatnot. But because I couldn't tell anybody, because I knew if I told people, you know, they would see it as a bad thing, and because I wouldn't, you know, I just wanted to be playful, and I would, you know, I would, you know, draw stuff and play games, and everybody else I was weird, and everybody else, you know, I was sort of alienated and sort of bullied from the least 9 onwards. I tried to commit suicide, and I tried to commit suicide from the age of 9 to 11. So 9 years old, all the way to 11, and I was bullied a lot. And eventually, my parents decided that I should learn martial arts, because to them, martial arts means fighting. But there's actually the word martial, which is practice, and art, which is finding your flow. So even the word martial arts, that means different in the East than it does in the West. We think just, oh, it means self-fighting. Actually, martial arts means personal development. It's about learning about, if you can learn how to make your body move, you can learn how to make your mind move, you can learn how to make your spirit move. That's why it's the 3 M's: martial, medical, and meditational. So especially the Chinese martial arts, they have a different, you know, a different concept. But even in the martial art world, it's like, it's not about fighting, it's not about break, you know, when you break a brick, oh wow, you broke a brick. To us, it's a technique. You know, you just broke a brick. You know, that's not. It's a bit like breathing. You're breathing. Yes. Mouth and air comes in. You know. So what happened was that I you know, my parents allowed me to do martial arts, and the first martial art I did was called Katida, which is called something else now, but it originally was called Katida. And they had adjudicators, like Chinese board would have adjudicators that would come in. And this bit of the story is known, but it's a little less known. So the adjudicators would come in, and I started around about 11, and coming up near to 1982 which is when I would have been 12 years old in April. So just coming up just before April, probably about now actually. There was different belts, and they would have these adjudicators come in, and this it was probably the first time I saw a Tai Chi suit. They're very similar to this, but his was a lighter color, very silky. The Sifu, one of my Sifu Shun, he came in, and he was there, and he did the adjudication, and then afterwards he walked up, like pretty much straight up to me and looked me straight into the eyes. And my parents weren't quite, they were there, but they were distracted, or they weren't quite listening. And he said, "I know you. I have been your Sifu before, and you have been mine. It's time for me to be your Sifu again." Now, for me, that made perfect sense. You know, him saying those words triggered inside my 11-year-old brain. Yeah. I sort of recognised him in an energetic way. Again, we're talking about in 1981, talking about past lives or psychiatric ward. I actually ended up. We'll get to that in a second. But so that's the first time I met Shun, and Shun was a Daoist. There are different types, like we said, there's many different ways. So even within Daoism, there's many types of Daoism. And he was a dragon dog shaman, he was a barefoot doctor, and he was a cloud whisperer, which eventually I would also learn these styles. So they're different styles of learning the way. And so that's when my journey first started. So it first started, I was 11, almost 2 months before I was or 1 or 2 months before I was going to be 12. And he then spoke to my parents and said, "Oh, your son's got potential. I would like to train him. I will do it under." And they would say, "Well, how much is it going to cost us?" I said, "No, this is not how it works. Is that I am coming to you saying I want to train him. So therefore, I will train him, and later he will then teach for me." Now, what they didn't know until later is that his one-to-one lessons in 1981 were £500 an hour. So, which £500 now, in dollars is about $700. So about $700-800 an hour, and that was in 1981. Yeah. For him to say I want to teach him was a big deal in that sort of thing. But to them, to Shun, whose whole family, they had their own system called Shudao, and to them, they looked for past students. They looked, because in China, especially over the last 100 years, it's changed a little bit with the Communist Party, because everybody thinks, the Communist Party has been around forever. It's only actually been around for the last 120 years in China. But before then, it was a lot different. And to them, reincarnation was normal. It was a thing that happened all the time. Any talents you have are their past life talents. You learn them in a past life, and that's why they're so easy. That's in the ancient knowledge, is that your talents, and it doesn't matter what it is, because it gets weird. It says, because people say, "Yeah, but I'm really good at computers." Computers weren't around in the past. How do you know? There's actually a lot of evidence saying the opposite. So, and also, who says you couldn't have reincarnated from the future? That's also possible. But maybe that's another time. Well, because we're not linear. In quantum physics, I love quantum physics. Quantum physics has actually stated that time really is an illusion. They're actually finding particles that are actually coming from the future and all the past. So they're now having to rethink things, because they're actually saying we perceive things in a linear fashion, but they're now coming to come to a different point of view. And funny enough, the Dragon Dog Shaman, which is one particular set of Daoists, they were talking about quantum physics 10,000 years ago. You know, they were talking about things that our physicists are now discovering now. They talked about back then. So basically, that's where my journey started. And the true thing of the Tao is that you're always an empty cup. You're always a beginning student. So there's always more to learn. And because it's day by day, you know, there's no rush, there's no hurry. And because you're immortal anyway, your consciousness is immortal, is that if you die, you just remember it in the next life and you bring it forward again. So they see things in a different way. You know, the whole their concept of reality is a bit different. And it's this whole, the Taoism I've particularly flow with is the waterway, or the Tai Chi way, which is there is no good, there is no bad, it just is. We experience life. Everything that happens was in some ways predetermined, because you have, you know, any trauma, any traumatic things that have happened to you, that person that created that trauma, you have actually got a soul contract with. You two agreed before this life to come in. Well, I want to learn this. Okay. Well, will you teach me that? Will you do that? Okay. So you be a bully, you pick on me, and then I can learn from that. Okay, cool. And their philosophy is that everything, Shakespeare once said that the world is a stage and we are mere actors on it. And so the idea is that, you know, we are just in a role, we're in a part, we're a character in a simulation. And the whole idea, we're here to learn and experience stuff. And it's this interesting thing in Daoist sort of version of understanding trauma, is that when you look at those traumatic situations, did you grow from it afterwards? Did something happen? Did it make you stronger? Did you realize not to do that again? Yes. So, you know, those traumas are actually helping you grow, and you're gaining experience from them. And or that idea of when people, you know, people that are really afraid of certain thing or something happening, and eventually, you know, when you actually get to it, you're worried about the exam finals, and when you get to them, when you chill out, they're actually fine and cool. But worrying actually causes more trauma and causes more problem. And there's this interesting thing that our reality is our own personal perception. So we perceive reality. So if you perceive something as a problem, it will become a problem. This is where phobias come from. You know, you see a spider and you see it as a big scary creature. It really is to you. And this is the thing, but that also means you can flip things the other way, because you can make the big scary creature into a pussycat, or, you know, and we actually have far more power than we know, than we realize. So what happened, like, especially through school, I learned the biggest thing is to learn. So at school, I really struggled. The way the education system, how it was taught, the teacher's at the front of the board, he points to the board, or he or she tells you, do this, do that. I couldn't learn that way. The way I learn is actually the way similar to Plato. Now, Plato believed in having everybody in a circle, and there is no leader, everybody's in the circle, and somebody says, what do you think of music? And then people would give their description of music and the different things, and then somebody would say, did you know that there is different styles of music within the styles of music? So country and western, there's different styles of country, there's different styles of this. And the whole idea is that the community actually learn together, and they add information, and this is actually really similar to how we really work, our brains work. And the irony is when I was a kid, I would be I actually got many back to being big trouble. I would get a lot of detentions for drawing what's now known as a spider diagram. As in, you have a subject, draw a circle around it, and then you draw little lines off it and say, oh, like music. So, oh, there's country and western, there's rap, there's this, there's that, and then where, oh, right. This style of music, it came from these people, this style of people, or from this generation, it came from this. And so spider diagrams is about, you have an overall subject and then you draw stuff off. Well, they didn't exist in 1980, 1981, 1982, 1983. So I would get detentions all the time from doing this, even though I said, but this is how my brain works. I learn this way. No, you're graffitiing in your books. You're being bad, and I get detention. So even though I knew how my brain works, I wasn't allowed to do it. So it's understanding, how things worked. And then later on, I ended up actually for a while teaching Qigong and Tai Chi in private schools. And I realized in private education, in certain schools, they're allowed to teach however they want to teach. So it can happen. You can teach in different ways. But it is realizing that, is that we have to change the way we teach. And you have to find what works best for you. Is that you can learn whatever you want, but you first need to find how you learn. That's the important thing. So anyway, sorry. Rabble.
No, amazing. No, thank you. Yeah, that's so interesting that those like spider graphs or diagrams, I forgot what we called them here, but that they didn't exist, but that's just how your brain worked, right? Like that's how you were seeing, like connecting like the dots and things like that. Wow. And so you got in trouble for it. And so that's like a misdiagnosis. Like now a lot of people are misdiagnosed with like ADHD, that kind of stuff, and they just put them on pills. But it's just now they're changing it to neurodivergency, or that's what we're calling, like nobody's using any other terms.
Well, they actually put me on Ritalin. So from 1980 up to 1984, I was put on Ritalin for being hyperactive. But my dad actually actually 1985 for 5 years, and my dad said, well, so if he's hyperactive, what does that mean? Oh, he can't sit still and he can't concentrate. He says. And so he said, so that means he shouldn't be able to play a computer game, no? And he said, that's right. He says, well, we've been at hospital for 3 hours. And in that 3 hours, he's been playing one game for 3 hours. And he's got the top score right now on that game. But if he was hyperactive, should he be able to do that? And go, oh no. And oh, that game's really hard. I can't. He's got 9,000. I could never get that high. Oh, he can't be hyperactive then. So why is he on Ritalin? So and the interesting thing with ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, is that in private industry, the FT 100, so Fortune 500 businesses and Fortune 100 businesses, so the £1 million, billion-dollar companies, since the 50s, they have been using people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, because for starters, there's actually a medical scientist that actually looked into these different, they're part of the autistic spectrum. They looked into all of these different ailments, and he actually said they have genetic traits like they are advancements, like they are mutations. And he actually states that they look like evolutionary traits, that the brain is evolving into a new another dimension. So we have been taught in the West, oh, these are ailments, these are bad things, you know, you are broken when you have these. But in the medical profession, and also in the FT 500 index businesses, people with these had skills. They saw them as skills, and they trained you how to use those skills better. And one of the things that they did to train you was Qigong, meditation, and yoga, or Shen-gong, Neigong, and Qigong. They taught those to actually enhance your mind, basically like Jedi mind tricks. And George Lucas based Jedi on Daoism, that the Force is actually Qi. And they talk about the dark and light side of the Force is actually the yin and yang in Tai Chi, in Daoism. So, and the word Jedi actually comes from Egypt, and it means the pillar of light, the keepers of the pillar of light, the wisdom, the knowledge. So the whole idea, the interesting thing I learned, like in my teens, was that these multi-billion-pound companies, they use dyslexics, dyspraxics, autistics, ADHD, all of these that we see as ailments, they use as skills. They train people and use them as skills. But they also use psychics, remote viewers, empaths, telepaths. There's a thing called a charger, which I'm trained as, and a charger is a bit like an energy muse. They sit there and, like a Reiki practitioner, they sit there and boost the energy. They make the room feel more charged, and people come up with better ideas and sort things out, and that's called a charger. And they use them as well, and they've been using them since the 50s. And my Sifus were one of the organizations that actually trained people to make these people stronger, these skilled professionals. They actually used, made them stronger and better in their techniques. So it was interesting that, even today, we still, oh, you're dyslexic, you've got ADHD, and it's like, stop seeing it.
Yeah.
You out there, stop seeing your condition as an ailment. It is a tool. Learn how to use the tool. A knife, you can cut your food with it, or you can stab somebody with it. I'd rather you cut your food with it, but it's still a tool. It's and everything about you there. This is why I will always say, and I used to get told off this a lot. There is no good or bad. There just is. And the reason I get told off, because people say, what about murder? What about this? What about that? What about the other? And I say, yes, these are not great things, but you grow from them, you learn, you experience from them. There is an awesome, I do my own show, and there was a woman called Melody Black, and she's British. She's from Europe, and in her 20s, she got gang raped, and very horrific thing. I not my favorite thing in the world, because I would want to be the superhero and go and beat them all up. But what happened is that years later, she actually held a conference, and in that conference, she said their initials, but all the people that were part of the gang rape, she publicly forgave and said, I forgive you, I'm sorry, and I love you. And a lot of people got really upset about it, saying, how dare you, you're belittling people that that go through this experience. And I said, no, you don't understand. By forgiving them, I let go of it myself. I let go of this trauma. I allow myself to move forward. And in Taoism and Buddhism, there's a saying that everything that happens to you, you pick up and you put in a bag in your back. So every happy thing, every bad thing, you put in your bag. Now, all the bad things, all the sad things, all the traumatic things, all the horrible things, all the frightening things are very heavy. And every time you put it in your back, you're slowing yourself down more and more and more. And your life will get shorter and shorter with all those heavy things in your pack. So if you let go of what you no longer need, if you let go of the traumas, let go of the pain, of the suffering, if you take them out of your bag, you will be lighter. And by being lighter, you will go further and you will learn from that experience. So there's this thing of that, yes, everything that happens to you is an experience. It's a tool, it's a technique. How do you twist it? How do you turn a stabby thing into a cut up your food, or even, you know, shape a beautiful portrait with it? You know, I've seen people who've used knives for modeling and painting. So, you know, I've seen knives used for musical instruments. You know, it doesn't have to be a knife. A knife, you know, a thing is a thing, but that thing you can use in so many ways. So it's this understanding that everything that you have is actually a tool. How do you use it? You know, all your so-called ailments and injuries, everything about you is just a tool. How do you want to use them? How do you want to express yourself? How do you want to find your goal and pursue your goal with those tools? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And everything that is supporting us abundantly around us is a tool that is given to us to, you know, for us to be able to be the best selves that we can and live the best possible life that we can here, you know. And, you know, talking about like everything is a tool, even your own body, like your own vessel is a tool, right? Like it is you, it's part of who you are, but it's like a tool too. Like you have to use it to the best of your advantage, you know what I mean? Like feed it right, exercise, you know, get your water in, all that stuff. Like when you take care of your vehicle, it takes care of you, you know what I mean? So it is also kind of like a tool. So that's
No, it is a tool, 100%. In Qigong, so one of the secrets of Qigong, so in Qigong, there's actually a form of Reiki called Shun Qi Shen. And if you, hopefully people will sort of get this. So if you think of apps on your phone, you know, the different apps do different things, or a program on a computer. You have different programs, one program to keep your dates, one program to wake you up in the morning. And so you have different apps, different programs. Well, imagine the Qigong like an app. So each Qigong does a different thing. There are Qigongs to help you relieve headaches. There are Qigongs to help your posture. There are Qigongs that will help you release past traumas, and so on and so forth. Now, each app, with your apps, they have updates. You know, it gets annoying sometimes. You turn your phone on, oh, it's going for a blooming update again. You get updates. Well, those updates are a download. You're receiving information. Well, Reiki is a form of download, or the Chinese version of it, Shun Qi Shen, flowing energy spirit. It's like a spiritual download. So there's actually this secret within in the East, at least, that in Qigong, yeah, when you're, especially if you have a certain teachers, especially if they're from China or Japan, and you're doing your exercises, and then you see them go, or and they sort of standing out or staring at you, they're actually giving you a download. They're giving you new information. They're giving you, in Japan, it's called Reishu, which means like empowerment, and they're giving you energy. So in Qigong, there is Reiki or Shun Qi Shen, but in Reiki, there's actually a Qigong. So there's a Qigong that will help build up your Reiki. So it's a bit like two sides of the same coin. But there's one interesting thing with these empowerments. Empowerments are also like joy, or that aha moment. Whenever you look at something that brings you joy and happiness, or you look at sunset and, oh, that's so beautiful, and you feel uplifted and you feel enlightened, you've just received an empowerment. You've just received a raise. So the universe, the world gives you those aha moments, those, you know, in the old cartoons or in movies, you see that shine of light, you know, the light of God, and or you get the light bulb. That's a Reiki. That's also an empowerment. So you actually receive empowerments all the time if you let yourself, if you relax and enjoy and let yourself, you know, go with the flow. You actually receive empowerments all the time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You received those. I mean, throughout my practice, I've known this because it's said often, and people are like, "Oh my god, yeah, that's corny, right?" But it's really true. In the stillness is when you get those, you know, like when you're just being, just being. Even you don't have to be completely still, but it's like the stillness that I mean is like an inner stillness where you're in that state. Like you could be singing, you could be bike riding, you know, doing something like that. But that's when you really get those moments, and it's like a divine inspiration, and that's what it feels like inside, you know, like it's amazing. And thank you for that, you know, thank you for sharing the Reiki connection with the Qigong and the Tao, your Taoistic ways, and all your healing techniques. I do want to we've talked for a while. It's been so much fun, and I feel like I've absorbed a lot of information, and I wanted to ask other things, and then things like now I don't remember exactly what it was. That's why I have my notebook here.
Well, I can talk.
Yeah, I love it. That's why it's a podcast. That's for talking. I do want to ask, just for you, before we do leave the episode, before we close off, is there anything else that you want to talk? Any messages that you have for anybody who may be listening?
Finding your way, finding your Tao. It's not about listening to other people. It's not about you know, it's funny in this world, you know, I've had lots of people say, Boggie, can I give you some advice? And oh, here we go. So yes, you can give me some advice. And they'd say something, and then the days or weeks will go by, and they say, I'm really upset with you. You didn't say what I told you to do. And I said, I thought it was advice, not a command. You know, is that, and the issue is like people will always tell you how to lead and how to live your life. But once you at least get to adult, your life is your life. You know, everything, you can have whatever you want in this world, as long as you're willing to pay the price. Now, you don't always know what that price is, but you know, whatever you want is available to you, and you can have it. Now that part of that price might be you might upset somebody because you're doing something that they don't like. Well, if you really want that thing, if your passion is for that, then, you know, if that's what you really want to do, then they will, you know, they'll either accept it eventually or they won't. But you know, you have to do things because you want to do them, and you have to live the life that will bring you closer to your balance, to your Tao. And it's not always easy. It's not, you know, it's not plain sailing. You know, it is, you know, like a swan. A swan's beautiful on the top, and underneath it's flapping like crazy. And sometimes life is like that. Sometimes you know, people think everything's cool and you're going for a lot of stuff. But know that life is waves. There's always an up, there's always a down. And if anything, remember this. If your breath is fast, shallow, and rapid, your thoughts will be fast, shallow, and rapid. Your actions will be fast, shallow, and rapid. Your feelings will be fast, shallow, and rapid. But if you can breathe slowly and effortlessly and calmly and quietly, your thoughts will be the same. Your actions will be the same. Your feelings will be the same. Everything is connected. Everything is your tool. Everything is part of you. Just allow yourself to flow with whatever life throws at you.
Yes, that is perfect. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's perfect for anyone who needs to hear that, because I receive the message. I definitely receive the message. I'm definitely going with the motions of life, and I feel like we all have been for the last few years, and that's just the nature of life. And we are going through a lot of great changes, and great changes come with great change. And great change is not familiar to us, so it feels difficult, it feels uncomfortable, and sometimes it is, it can even be sad and painful, but at the end of the day, the bigger picture is love, unconditional love, and it is all happening for our greatest and highest good, and for that ascension and that expansion that we are all part of, that we get to be part of, and that we're hopeful, for, and that we're looking forward for. And so I'm just really happy to have you on.
Thank you. I just want to quickly say as well, watch your breath and think about your breath, and remember, in quantum physics, ever since the 1900s, quantum physics itself states that what you focus on grows, that the observer affects the experiment. There's a whole thing, we could do a whole show on that. There's a whole thing about epigenetics, but what, and the placebo, nocebo, but what you focus on grows. So if you're angry, what are you focusing on? If you're happy, what are you focusing on? Wherever you are right now, what is it you're focusing on? And if it's not what you want, then don't focus on it. And breathe.
Exactly. 100%. I agree 100%. I work on that every day. That's why affirmations are so freaking powerful. That's why they work. So why don't you let the people know where they can find you and what you offer your services, if anybody wants to work with you.
Yeah. So you can find me, depending where you're listening. You can actually find me on Spotify under Sifu Boggie and all the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. My podcast is on there. You can find me on YouTube under, surprise, surprise, Sifu Boggie, SIFU BOGGIE. You can find me on Instagram under Sifu.Boggie. Apparently, I needed a dot. You can find me on Facebook, Sifu Boggie. You can find me on TikTok under Sifu Boggie. Basically, look for Sifu Boggie. And I'm also on Patreon, which, again, surprise, surprise, Sifu Boggie. And I do a lot of, at the moment, I do classes. I enjoy classes because classes, you can pay for a month, and you can go month by month, and the whole idea is you learn a little bit more and a little bit different stuff all the time. I have done courses. I'm going to do courses again, but for me, courses are a little bit set, a little bit stagnant. I like flowing things. That's why I like doing the classes. But I do classes, I do courses, I do one-to-ones. So if you find me, especially on Instagram or YouTube, you'll see my link tree, which is my online business card, and you can go over to there and you can find me there. That's it.
Yay! Yes, everybody, please go follow Sifu. He posts great content, always mind-blowing things, and you can always feel that great energy through his videos. Thank you so much for being here, Sifu. I really, really appreciate you taking your time to come on here. This is, like a little love project of mine, just like a hobby, just to talk to people, get to learn different things, offer different perspectives to anyone who might be listening. And so, as always,
you've been on the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. So anybody's listening to this, look up the Way of Conscious Mindfulness, and actually look up on Instagram, and you will find Luna's show with me on there, so you can see the other way around.
Yes, I just did. I just was on his show, The Way of Luna. Go check it out on his Instagram, and you can check me out on there as well. But as always, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Mucho love.